Om Shanti. So sometimes, before we came into Gyan, we thought of thoughts and vibrations as something very intangible and mostly as something we didn't recognize or consider while coming into actions or while going through the day. But Baba has made us aware of the profound effect that our thoughts and our vibrations have on the atmosphere. And when you undertook the course, on the first day, I gave you a chain of how it all works, and it is thoughts, feelings, attitude, action, then there is habit, then there is personality, relationships, and destiny. So you see that even if you are not aware of what you are thinking, the process of creation of your destiny is ongoing. So your thoughts are creating your destiny, and your destiny is part of collective consciousness. So your thoughts are part of the collective consciousness. So you are creating the world's destiny also. So this is why one needs to be very conscious of what you are thinking. And what I have observed is when we are in body consciousness, then low energy thoughts and low vibration thoughts are what we produce in huge quantities, and we are not even aware. When you're body conscious, when you're caught up in life and death, so there is nothing like life and death. Baba says that everything is continuous and eternal, but when you get caught up in this is living and they died and might be we will die, or you get caught up in this life and death, or you get caught up in success or failure, or you get caught up in praise and defamation. So when you get caught up in these body conscious patterns of thinking, then you don't realize the kind of impact you are creating on the world and on your own destiny. So Baba, that is why always says that take care of your consciousness, and always in the morning sit and tune yourself into soul consciousness. Because if you're body conscious, you will inevitably think the thoughts you shouldn't and create the atmosphere you shouldn't. And then you see that another thing about this creation of thoughts and vibrations is, so there is a phenomena in the world where people have discovered that if there is a research going on in some part of the world, so if there is one person who comes up with a certain idea about researching on a certain subject, then it is suggested that you get that research patented very soon, or that subject patented very soon. Why? Because it is observed that maybe that subject had not occurred to anybody in the world for several centuries, but now, as soon as one person gets that idea, many people in many parts of the world start doing similar research. And this is a phenomena that is observed in the world. And why is it so? Because you see, just like when you release something on the internet, then anybody in any part of the world trying to connect with that thing that you have released on the internet can download it. they will have access to it. So our thoughts also create a certain kind of web. And when you have released thoughts into that web of, whatever you call it, internet or anything, then anybody trying to get it will be able to download it. So anybody tuning into that frequency will be able to download it. So this is why Baba says we are all connected in our consciousness, and so when we talk about Mansa Seva, or we talk about, serving through the mind, so it might look like you are sitting in one corner of the room and then just sitting and telling yourself, I am a peaceful soul. But then the vibrations you are creating are reaching far and wide. And just like this is true, the opposite is also true. So when you are telling yourself, I am bored, I am worried, I am afraid, then that is the vibration you're creating, and that is what you're sending out to the world. Now, when we are body conscious, we are not very aware that we are doing this continuously. So this is why Baba says, keep an attention, very conscious attention on your state of being, and very conscious attention on what you're thinking. And Baba says, always remember this mantra, Om Shanti, I am peace. Peace is not what I think or feel. I am peace. That is my quality. That is who I am. So it is only wise to act according to who I am. And Baba says that Om also applies to Baba. So Baba says, I am also a being and I am also peace. So Baba says, just like you say Om Shanti, I also say Om Shanti. But there is another mantra which is Man Mana Bhav. That is, take your attention to me. So connect your mind with Baba. So Baba says, always remember these two things. One is, I am peace. And second is, I have to connect my mind with Baba. So I have to take my mind to Baba. And my mind shouldn't be plugging in here and there and, experiencing people, places and things. But I should take my mind to Baba, and my mind should experience the qualities and the love and the power of Baba. So Baba says these are two conscious practices that you have to keep doing. And today Baba is talking about how if you want to create a peaceful world, or if you want to create peace, you have to do away with vices. So Baba says, vicious people cannot create a peaceful world. Vicious people cannot create a peaceful world. And what is vicious? So vicious means if you are under the influence of lust, ego, anger, attachment and greed, then you cannot stay peaceful and you cannot create a peaceful world. And you see, in the world we have so many NGOs working for peace, and then there is the United Nations organization which works for peace. But and I will tell you, in one of the UN conferences, the opening line of that peace conference was, we will fight for peace. So the approach we take for establishing peace is anger. So you cannot be angry and establish peace, or you cannot fight and establish peace. It doesn't work like that, but that's what we are doing. That's what we are doing. And Baba says, you have to understand this one very simple thing, that you cannot bring about peace until and unless you are peaceful. But you cannot be peaceful if you are vicious. If you have vices, you cannot be peaceful, because if you have vices, so let's understand vices very simply. So lust is attachment to someone's body. Greed is attachment to things and wealth. Attachment or moha, that is attachment to relationships. Ego is attachment to your own physical, professional, social, national, all these identities. Right? So, if you are attached to any of these four things, then that is called being vicious. And when you are attached to these things, then anybody, any threat to that object of attachment will upset you. Yes, anything going on with your object of attachment will have an effect here. And then you will react. You will get upset or angry, or some of these negative emotions will come up. So this is why Baba says, if you're vicious, you cannot be peaceful. And if you yourself are not peaceful, how can you create a peaceful world? So this is why Baba says, I come and teach you about purity. Now, in the Murli today, I was talking about this, and when I first came to Baba, and in Baba's home, this word purity comes up so often, and in the world you have never heard this word purity. Like, yes, the purity of water or the purity of milk we have studied, but not like purity. Like, we don't discuss purity in a normal day-to-day language. And when I came to Baba, I was taking the course, and then every day this purity would come up. And then one day I asked that, what is this purity? I don't get this. So, what are you talking about? What is this purity? I get peace, I get happiness, I understand power. I don't understand what purity is. So Baba says, you don't even know what purity is before you come to Baba. And what is purity? So I've thought about this a lot. Purity is very difficult to define in language, but I have come up with a very workable definition, and that may not be very subtle, very gross, but then what is purity in my understanding is, whenever you symbolize purity, you give the symbol of a lotus flower. And what is the speciality of a lotus flower? It stays in an environment which is full of dirt and filth, but it is unaffected. So purity is that state when you are unaffected by whatever is going on around you. And when will that happen? When you don't have any attachments. If you have attachments to people, places, things, stuff, position, your own identities, then you cannot be pure. And Baba says, when you're free from all attachment, and the first attachment is your attachment to sensual pleasure. Sensual pleasure. So pleasure that you are experiencing through the skin, through your tongue, through your eyes, through your ears. So if you are dependent or attached to sensual pleasure, so when you say attachment to your own body, it also means attachment to sensual pleasure you are deriving from that body. So if you are attached to sensual pleasure, then also that is not purity. So this is why Baba says stop engaging in lust, because that is the biggest form of sensual pleasure that one is engaging in. And if you are dependent on this kind of a pleasure, then once you don't get it, you cannot stay peaceful. So Baba says that your dependencies on people, places and things, and your dependence on sensual pleasure and on objects of sensual pleasure, Baba says you have to overcome that if you want to come to that place of being unaffected. And that detached state, that is a state of purity. And Baba says when you understand purity, when you imbibe purity, then you are in some ways capable of establishing peace by being peaceful. Yes, so otherwise, and you see why, so in these days, why do we experience a lot of peacelessness inside? Because there is a lot of instability outside. And Baba says this instability will only exacerbate. But in the face of that instability, if you can stay peaceful, then there is only one way in which you can do that, which is when you are pure. That is, you have won over your dependence on sensual pleasures, on people, places, things, and other stuff to make you feel happy or peaceful inside. And how does that happen? When you start knowing that you are peace and you are the child of the ocean of peace, and you just stay in that awareness, then you are able to kind of deconstruct this equation and de-link your peace with the stability of things outside. When you start practicing this true mantra, I am peace and I am the child of the ocean of peace. So only then will you be able to rise above these attachments, and you will be in a position to stay peaceful come what may and create an atmosphere of peace come what may. So Baba says, and Baba says something very interesting in the Murli today. Baba says those who are trying to establish peace in the world, ask them if they have established peace in their home. So this is very beautiful, and I have always come across this thing that people who are into counseling and people who are into correcting other people's behaviors and diseases and other things, if you ask a doctor, he is treating other people's body, but can he ensure he doesn't get affected by an illness? Or you ask a counselor, he is able to counsel other people's children, but his children are going to a different counselor. So Baba says, if this is the way it is operating, then obviously the treatment or the counseling is not effective, which means it is not long-lasting. You may experience temporary relief, but it will not last long, because the one who is giving that relief is not an embodiment of that relief. So Baba says, what the world needs is not temporary peace and happiness. It needs an overhaul. So for that, you have to tune yourself into your ever peaceful, ever happy state by embracing purity, because purity is the mother of peace and happiness. You cannot have peace and happiness without purity. Baba says, Pavitrata Sukh Shanti ki janani hai. And if you don't have purity, the peace and the happiness is very body conscious and it is temporary. And Baba says, you will only experience and establish temporary peace and happiness if you are in that condition. But if you want to create something permanent, then embrace purity. So this is something. And then in the blessing today, Baba is talking about something very interesting and nice. And Baba says, if you are connected with Baba, if you are in the state of Man Mana Bhav, then you will be able to read into people's feelings and intentions. And you will be able to decide what they actually need, or discern what they actually need. And then when you give them that, then they will become powerful. And then your task of creating a peaceful, powerful world will be successful very soon. Now, if you put it simply, so Baba has told us that people engage in bad behavior because the soul is weak. So when you see a behavior, the first thought that you have is, this person is bad. And when you know somebody is bad, you want to correct them, you want to punish them. That's your approach. You want to correct and punish people who you think are bad. And who do you think are bad? Those who engage in bad behavior. But then if you are soul conscious and connected with Baba, if you are in awareness, you will be able to figure out that this bad behavior is coming from a weak place. Every soul is engaging in bad behavior because they are weak. And what is that weakness? Do they want love? Do they want acceptance? Do they want trust? Do they want some cooperation? Do they want some power? And when you look through that veil of behavior and are able to see that core which requires some power, then you will ask yourself, what do you want to give to them to empower them? So instead of trying to correct them or punish them, you will try to empower them. And when you try to empower them, then they will come to their power and they will be able to do better next time. And if you try to correct them and punish them, then they lose power, because that correction and punishment is coming from a place of criticism or dismissing who they are, and then that is negative energy, and then that person gets weaker and weaker eventually. You know something, I have known this thing for years now, but this is one of the most difficult things to practice. This is one of the most difficult things to practice, not to see the behavior and to see what's behind that, because as Baba said, the most important thing is your stage. So when you are trying to act in a certain way, your stage becomes your roadblock. You want to do something, but your stage is not powerful, you cannot do it. So this is why Baba says, create the stage of Man Mana Bhav. Always remembering Baba. And when you are always in remembrance of Baba, you will be in that stage. And then you will be able to see through the behavior and look at the person inside and appreciate that they are weak and try to give them strength instead of correction and punishment. There is a question, let me take that up and then I will talk about more details of this. Most of the times, at least within families, these bad behaviors are a result of fight for some monetary stuff. Most of the times we understand that, but we are also unable to satisfy their needs, giving extra money as they wish. How do we deal with such souls? So, you see, they don't want money, they want contentment. So, they have thought that they will become contented once they get your money. Yes? Now, let me tell you one thing. Yesterday also I gave you that example of, that on the traffic signal, these eunuchs not asking me for money because, so, when you are, so this is a vicious cycle. So vices form a cycle. So vices, and this interesting word, you say it's a vicious cycle, and Baba also says it's a vicious cycle. In the world also, Baba, it is said a vicious cycle. And when you are vicious, it forms a cycle. So what is the cycle? When somebody is looking at your money, you also start looking at your money. Okay, so they are talking about taking your money, and you are also, all your attention is not on not giving your money. But then if you are not that vicious, then they are talking about money, you are in your state of contentment, and then you are able to pull them in that state of contentment where they realize money doesn't matter. I will tell you a very simple example which I came across very recently. So there is this girl, and she was studying outside, and whenever she talked to her father on phone, her father would say, we have paid so much for your education, and we are taking so much of care of you, and you are squandering money. And it was all about money, money, money. And then she used to tell me, sister, money is the most important thing in life, because all my father does is talk about money and how he invested money and this and that and the other. And then I happened to talk to her father one day. So by chance, there was this opportunity, and then her father, so I said, why do you always talk about money? He said, no, she asks for money all the time. So I said, why don't you once try telling her that, beta, it all belongs to you. You use it today, you use it tomorrow, you use it 15 years later, it is all yours. You have to take care of the money. I am not taking it away from you. And then he said, I don't think if that would work. She would come with an agreement, and she would actually ask me to write that all for her to next second itself. So I said, no, you just try, and you first believe in it. See, I told him, how old are you? He said, I am 50 plus. I said, you might die tomorrow. Everything is anyways hers. Is it not? He said, yes, it is hers. She was her only child. So I said, what is this money, money? You try telling her this one thing. Just be convinced it is hers. Then on another occasion, he said that thing to her. When she started that topic about money, he said, everything belongs to you, beta. Everything is yours. And then there was a silence, and then that topic didn't come up again. So, it's a vicious cycle. When you are viceless, that is why Baba says, when you are man mana bhav, then everything works. Because if you are in ego, you will play into other people's ego. If you are in greed, other people's greed will affect you. You cannot pull them to a different state. And you can only see another person's weakness if you are strong. If you're yourself weak, you don't have that vision. So that's why the most important thing to underline in the Vardhan is not it is not what happens when it works, but how it works is when you are man mana bhav. And what I have observed is we are only so concerned about body and wealth and relationships and stuff because we are weak souls and we are holding on to them for our identity. And once we become powerful enough, it will be very easy to let go and be a trustee, that is, take care of everything, but in a very trustee like manner. So that is why Baba is talking about being manmana bhav, and then looking at everybody's too much, attachment to people, places, and things as a sign of weakness. And they are not able to let go because they are weak. And when you are in that state where you are not holding on to anything, you can pull them in that state where they will be able to let go. Yes. So somebody is shouting at you. Why are they shouting at you? When did you shout so much last? Were you feeling very powerful at that time? So just recall the time you shouted too much. That's not the time you were feeling powerful. When you are desperate, you shout. So that person is desperate. They are not insulting you. They are not able to respect themselves. So bring them to that place where they start respecting themselves. Remind them of who they are. Have compassion. Treat them well. If you treat a person well, then they understand that they are dignified. They matter. So anybody coming from a place of desperation has to be treated well. So these things Baba is talking about, but when you are very fixated with the external, it is very difficult to appreciate these things. So Baba says, if you do that inner work, you will be able to pull the other person also into that consciousness. All right. Om Shanti.